This video is sponsored by Squarespace, the Antoine Dupont of website builders.
Being picked is the easy bit. To win for the Lions in a test match is the ultimate. You have an awesome responsibility on your shoulders. An awesome responsibility. This is your Everest, boys. The pre-match speech, the iconic quotes tied into all of us by the stocking stuffer DVD that follows every tour, has become a critical part of the Lions tour. A core component, players pumped up by being told how special days like this are, how one day they'll just be a look and that'll make an honest player than be it in the future with the jersey or without. Lions tests demand an emotional edge rarely accessed in regular games. And we had one such game on Saturday as a very impressive but somewhat business-like Lions side scaled past a misfiring Wallabies team on their way to base camp. A late surge, not enough to see Australia back in the game as the Test Series, the most anticipated event in men's rugby this year, got underway. This was an incredibly smart, accurate display from the guy who gave us the Hurt Arena, taking a 1-0 lead as the Wallabies were left with an ultimatum: improve or face being the first host whitewashed by the Lions in 51 years. So, how did Andy Farrell's Lions take control of the series? Are Australia's flaws fixable in a week by Joe Schmidt? And how does this set us up for the second test at a sold-out 100k seater MCG? In between never really expanding on that mountain climbing analogy, Telfer's famous speech does feature one factor that rung extremely true on Saturday. You'll never win a test match for the Lions unless you put your body on the line, every jack of you, for all 80 minutes. Despite all the flick pass bullshit we saw over the first part of the tour, Saturday was a test match won on physicality paired with intelligent execution. Under Joe Schmidt, Australia have developed an attacking game plan that's both incredibly intricate and complicated, but also, if you boil it down, follows an extremely simple flow chart. The end result is this kind of stuff. The team running extremely elaborate patterns with several players acting as a fly-off, organising waves of the attack all at once, all these lovely interlocking triangles, flankers and wingers often slotting as alternate tends to keep things running. It's beautiful to watch and opens up defence after defence. However, there's a step before you get to this. Generate front foot fast ball so the defence has no time or chance to read your shapes in advance. The rest of the attack has so many intricate lines and fancy angles of running, we frequently see players start some 25 and 30 metres behind the gain line, and hence you only want to play those structures if you're the team on top. If the defence is advancing or the ball is slow, if you're playing on the other team's terms, you're risking an easy read in the wide channels and hence losing up to a quarter of the pitch worth of territory in one go. That's without the adjustments to those angles of running required if everyone's taking a backward step after each carry, leading to everything being a little bit off, you being much less accurate in what you're able to do. Joe Schmidt has always had a core contradiction at the heart of the way he plays the game. In love with open attacking rugby, yet naturally a very conservative coach. So if Australia don't get over the gain line, they don't play. They don't risk anything. They don't even try. So rather than worrying about what happens when the Wallabies get into full flow, what they can do to shut it down, the Lions just went, no, let's stop them at source. This is Australia's first real attacking opportunity of the game. Already 10-0 down. It's the simplest play in the world here. 9 hits Ikitau, who has tip-on options inside and out, the goal being purely to generate that front foot ball. Ikitau considers the inside tip to Potter, but Curry has got off the scrum so fast he's closed it off, and instead he makes a really good carry through the two halfbacks. However, watch Tom Curry's work here. He just causes an absolute nuisance, holding the ball up, getting in the way to slow it down. Then the ref tells him to get out of the way, get out of there, so he listens. Then he goes back in, managing to nudge Williams as he bends down to play 9. Ball out, McCarthy now gets off the line straight away before the passers come and forces just a simple pick and go. Curry has single-handedly killed all momentum Ikitau generated, but the Wallabies have a secret weapon here. One of Schmidt's favourite ploys is attacking the blind side, as teams can't possibly offer the same line speed both sides of the ruck. You can't spread your resources evenly, often giving you an easy gain line carry on that short side. But the Lions on Saturday were incredibly alert to this, frequently loading the blind side with multiple forwards to prevent the Wallabies gaining any momentum down there. McWright here goes for another of Schmidt's regular ploys if they're not going forward. Flop the ground early so you can at least have quick ball even if you're not going forwards, but Conan disrupts it massively anyway. And watch Ellis Genge here, he was so good on Saturday. Most props, Ikitau's the time to get on their outside, engage Sheehan and get Potter over the gain line at the very least, but Genge, well drilled and knowing exactly what to watch out for being this kind of play, absolutely shoots in and nails the centre, catching him behind the gain line. The Wallabies finally get some ball they can play off a phase or so later, but with 4 players still on this side here, their numbers lighten the shape. Frost really wants another pod of forwards outside him so they can stretch the lines a bit, get on the outside, but no. It's instead a fairly easy read, and watch Curry again flatten opposite number McWright, who takes an extra second to get back up to his his feet. The Wallabies once again work some decent ball that they can play off and look to go blindside to double up, but the Lions are so alert. There's 2 back rowers here and a centre also over to watch, and they make a mess of it again. The next phase, McCarthy holds the ball up to slow it down, targeting the ball, and Burns stays on the short side and, contrary to theory, flies up, knowing a soak-up tackle would open up space the following phase, so dominant shots are necessities. Gibson Park himself then gets in on the act and disrupts the ball. Curry again, then on the ball, slowing it down, holding it up. The presentation late, the ball slow. Australia at this point are getting desperate, and Spot Burn is still getting back up to his feet, so look to target him. Surely that's a gain line carry, that lock is off balance, but no. The closest thing to a Scarlets player on this tour gets over the ball and wins the turnover. This is a standalone, incredible defensive set, giving Australia no opportunity to attack, but it's also typical of how Farrell's gang defended all day. The Wallabies ultimately dominated possession, but if you go through the game, very few of their 116 phases presented ball that they could open the attack off, as a clear indicator of how incredibly well drilled the Lions side were at shutting down every single tiny trick Schmidt's side likes to use to get cheap front foot ball. Here, Atoje floods through the line out and scrags Gordon before he can even get it wide, before they can play whatever the Wallabies were planning to do first phase to try and generate that momentum. They then use another trick we saw all autumn. France-style rapid pick and goes, eventually getting a great carry from Wilson down the blind side. But when they work in field to get a better position to play off, to reset, look how narrow the Lions have remained. Nobody is eyeing wide. Nobody's worried about going out the boot. They know how Australia play. They know how they like to generate momentum. It's all about line speed, and they smash them. Liner then tries a chip that feels like it was maybe on a phase or 2 earlier, but at this point is extremely well covered, and Lowe boots them back into their own half. In fact, Lowe actually boots them back so far, Joe Schmidt in the coach's box actually started building a website with HTML, landing so firmly in the past. Thankfully, however, he was soon introduced to Squarespace. Eager to bring his playbook together into one cohesive, loving online package for his players, easy to access, Schmidt found Squarespace as the world's easiest to use, simplest website builder, yet giving so many beautiful options, able to format his playbook in countless ways. He could publish it as a blog, doing post after post on individual plays, as images, a gallery, or individual pages, or all listed one after the next, as a video, integrated as a podcast, integrated as a map, as almost literally whatever his imagination could reach, all integrated into Squarespace as a built-in feature, able to spread to the players at half-time, and let them interact on their own terms, come up with it the way they liked it, based on Squarespace being so versatile. And yet, Schmidt built it in minutes. And if you want to do the same and build your own beautiful website, maybe for your own playbook, who knows, why not head to the link in the description and use the offer code SQUIDGRUGBY to save yourself some money on that website. It made for a frustrating, disjointed Wallaby performance. Schmidt, after the game, spoke of how players weren't hitting the right lines of running, but the truth is they were rarely allowed to by the Lions' raw physicality. Tom Curry played with his usual desperation to get injured, the sort of all-action, mostly violence performance that makes you wonder if he spends trips to the shops, also just throwing his body at lampposts and into the paths of large dogs. The guy was heroic, going beyond no regard for his own safety into active disregard, seemingly viewing the Skeleton Dance Dem Bones song as a checklist of things to break. Tyke Byrne was relentless everywhere, the living embodiment of Telfer's instruction to outjump, outrock, outdrive, out-tackle them until they're sick of you. The pair combining to get the Lions on the board almost immediately. Curry's shot here costs Australia a critical inch. Watch all the players in the background take a step backwards, Liner then dropping it off and leaving Swirly isolated. Byrne winning the turnover, Shape thrown off by a brilliant extra effort tackle. Curry's selection over the more, perhaps in form, Jack Morgan or Josh van der Fleer raised some eyebrows, but this was a smart tactical decision for which we can now see the full picture. Ben O'Keefe, as a referee, is extremely tough on Jackalus, always favouring the attacking side. And whilst that angers some people on Twitter, it leads to games he referees almost always being open, free-flowing belters of fast ball and attacking rugby. He tends to referee the best game of the year most years. But the other side of this is the USP Morgan and van der Fleer offer, the Jackal, turning the ball over, stealing the ball, was always going to be depowered in this first test. The Lions would need to find other ways of slowing the ball down. Andrea Piardi, referee for the second test, is a guy who tends to favour the Jackler rather than the attacking team, so I wonder if we see a different selection with those conditions in mind going into game 2. However, Curry also allowed the Lions to further dismantle Australian attack in a way Morgan or van der Fleer wouldn't. The Wallabies get some good go forward here, phase on phase, but as Liner starts to open things up, look at the way Curry kamikazes his way into the shape. Yes, Williams eventually makes a very good carry, but he takes so much time out of the attack. Ikitau here is floating out the back with the chance to isolate Jones here as the last defender before the touchline, but Curry shuts that down before he can even look at him, before the pass can get wide before he can weigh anything up to Ikitau. It allows Sheehan to bite across and help Freeman and Keenan cover the shape the following phase. The knock-on of Curry's involvement is huge and potentially saves a line break. And then, a moment later, because he can't help himself, he just can't stand still, once the ball does work back inwards, when he isn't required for the tackle, he just shoves the support anyway to knock them off their clean 1 or 2%. Next phase, sure enough, Australia lose shape and knock it on. The Lions' intensity of the first 60 minutes was kind of frightening and not something the Wallabies could live with at all. It felt a bit like a side playing at World Cup knockout intensity up against a side fronting up for an average test match. This wasn't helped by the injury to Rob Valetini, arguably the Wallabies' best player, a guy who can generate front football single-handedly, instantly, no matter how determined the man opposite him is to no longer have a shoulder. But on top of this, Schmidt took a series of selection gambles, almost all of which backfired on him. James Slipper was selected to shore up the scrum, which broadly went well, but it meant benching Angus Bell, the only bullshit carrier now in the 23 with Valetini and Gleeson injured, capable of creating front football from a static position, someone the Wallabies leaned on enormously last autumn during the successful campaign. Andrew Kellaway, likewise, was left in the room of a requirement for Harry Potter in order to target the aerial game, but it meant both wingers broadly sticking to their wide channels to play their natural game, acting as strike runners, rather than Kellaway coming in as a ball player to vary the attack, something he did when he came on to great effect, leading to Tate McDermott's try. Nick Champion de Crespigny was selected to target the breakdown, but we saw what an extra ball carrier could add once Tom Hooper replaced him, able to nab more front football and get them playing, get their attack functioning. The control of Jake Gordon was preferred to Tate McDermott or Nick White, but then the biggest gamble of all came in who partnered him. Tom Liner at 10 on his first international start, who looked like a rabbito in the headlights, often disconnected from his team, not adjusting to the second less time you get at international level and finding options shut off before he could make them. Or kind of worse, just look at how often he took the ball, stood static, stood still, just giving the likes of Curry, Byrne and Itoje time to charge up, chance the target runners pick them off, smash them before they've even caught the ball. It just served to take pace and dynamism out the Australian attack because he's not a threat, he's not an option, giving the Lions reasonably easy pickings on defence even once their intensity dropped in the final 20. Liner simply looked like a kid on his first start, dropped into one of the most intense games you can play in rugby union. He's probably 7 or 8 caps off being able to adapt what he does so well in Super Rugby, where he's fantastic, to this tier, and unfortunately it showed on Saturday. It felt a little bit like Schmidt loaded the bench to go in strong in the final quarter, assuming the game would be tight, and whilst that worked, so many of the micro adjustments he made to his kicking, his scrummaging, his rucking came at a heavy price for the broader all-round game, their ability to score tries, to move forward, to execute. Yes, they improved in the final quarter, but they were already out of the game by that point. This was a match Schmidt had been hired to target, but Saturday felt like a selection, like a game plan that had been overthought. Because ultimately, the Wallabies were unable to prevent the Lions getting into a pretty commanding lead over the first 40-odd minutes of the game. The opening try, scored by childhood Aussie Sione Tuipulotu, originates from a really smart strike move off this scrum. Gibson Park hits Tuipulotu, who steps the centres and is caught then only by the folding flanker McWright, with both locks tracking across to catch the ball to get to this ruck. Wilson then hits the breakdown to try and slow it down, and the Lions reload pretty much in line with the scrum, with where it had been. The two props here have just held position, with Russell in their boot, and they're against their opposite numbers doing the same, but without any clue what the plan is or what comes next. Furlong fixes Alatoa, and Genge's line here is brilliant. It causes Fezler, who's waited a bit further out, the hooker, to jam in from a wider position and smash him, opening a hole on his outside. Both centres on the far side, Champion de Crespigny has filled in the role here, but is easily pulled in by Russell, with Gordon stuck in two minds. Sheehan or Low or Sheehan, where do I... eventually he doesn't even make the decision, just lets the hooker go through. Sheehan is eventually brought to ground, but the Lions' previous shape just floods on through, tripling up from scrum to phase 2 to phase 3, Genge into contact. The Aussie forwards in full-on scramble mode, honeypot here, opposite the Lions' counterparts, and it leaves this touchline light. A stretch pass from JGP to Lowe, two guys who know each other incredibly well, is probably one body here off opening it up, but Lowe's little offload gets Genge right up to the try line. Wilson, utterly tireless and brilliant all day, makes a great initial contact from Furlong, and he panic passes to keep the ball alive. Everything gets very loose, so Russell just calms it down. He holds the ball for that extra second to just watch what the defence does, way up the whole picture. And to that moment, the Potter turns his head to watch, so Russell knows it's on. Thankfully for the Lions, this isn't the Harry Potter with an owl on his shoulder to watch all sides, and Russell catches him ball watching, unable to turn in time and prevent Tuipulotu going over for the try. However, opportunities like this were few and far between for the Lions, thanks to one of the game management touches Smith undoubtedly got massively right. Russell mentioned after the game the Lions only had one launchpad line out to play off over the entire 80, all of their other set pieces coming in their own 22 and just needing to exit, a product of how Australia kicked tactically. The usual logic when booting is from your own 22, kick long, from halfway or the opposition half, kick contestable, but the Wallabies kind of switched that up. This is how the Wallabies exited most of Saturday. Instead of smash up, set up, kick for touch, or go as long as you can, they go straight off the line out to Liner, whose body language initially says, yeah, I'm going to shove it on, but then hangs it, and it's a brilliant kick. Lowe has come up flat initially, thinking he's playing it wide, just in case, and Keenan is very deep in case they kick long, and this bomb comes down perfectly between the two, leading to a communication error between the two Lions. Lowe panicking with the ball in the air long enough for Jorgensen to get there, applying plenty of pressure when he fumbles it. The Lions do regather, but not for long. Momentum allowing McWright to flood forward and pounce, the Wallabies having a chance to then play. The Australian kicking game was incredibly smart, with both Gordon and Liner nailing it. The young Tans boot the real highlight of his evening. However, it became near impossible for Australia to use this to get on top, thanks to a pretty exceptional performance from Hugo Keenan, often turning kicks that most fullbacks would let bounce, and hence grant Australia momentum into fairly neutral outcomes, him able to thump it back to exactly where it came from. He was half-penny-esque, covering so much ground and apparently able to read every kicker's mind. It only served to make Max Jorgensen's try even more impressive, able to strip him, probably because Keenan was busy writing the book an archetypal fullback player with his other arm as he caught it. It's brilliant from Jorgensen and a great kick by Gordon. And whilst it's the obvious moment of Keenan in this game, and I've seen people get overly critical of it, there's so many you wouldn't even notice where he covers 40 metres, 50 metres to reach a ball that other fullbacks would let bounce would never even get to. Despite the eventual 8-point margin, this felt like the most comprehensive Lions first test victory of the professional era at the very least. Farrell's Gaggle were comfortable all match, in control, confident they'd weather the storm. Sheehan's try just nailed that loose ball, presenting the chance for Hugh Jones, and whilst Tommy Freeman does his best here to ruin it by overrunning the ball, the Lions just remain calm and look for the opportunity, always scanning, multiple players acting as that kind of first receiver. The eventual shape here is incredibly smart, a simple 3-man pod, but played so far wide, Australia assumed the best defender has it covered. Jones, acting as the fly half, arches outwards as he catches it, further routing the space, allowing Curry to straighten and put Sheehan over in the corner. It's really well worked. It's really smart play, off a fortuitous bounce from the line out. It felt like the moment that settled the game, and yet throughout that second half there was hope and reason for Australia to believe as we head into the final 2 games of the series. Harry Wilson, Fraser McWright and Max Jorgensen were excellent, particularly Wilson, who hopefully soon will get added to Jack Morgan and Sergio Parise's WhatsApp group. Tireless and kicked incredibly well, whilst the bench also worked. Tate McDermott remains the best number 21 in the game and can seemingly turn any match in the final quarter. The addition of him and Donaldson adds some real threat to Wallabies attack. Contrast this to the set we showed earlier. McDermott picks and goes, Donaldson runs it, squares up and engages the defender before looping to Tate, who snipes round. Does a great handoff, gets well over the gain line. The Lions are now massively on the back foot, and similar to Tuipulotu try, instead of Curry steaming up here, they've worked it in line with the scrum, so it's just the tired props, and it allows the time for them to spread it. The backs wrapping around in the triangles on the wide, Kellaway coming in to play the ball, Potter putting in a little step and moseying on up towards the line. McDermott keeps the pace incredibly high. Just little carries, little pop-offs, pick and goes. Doesn't matter how much ground they make, just take defenders off their feet. Keep the lines working and working inwards, forcing these forwards to keep working until the space arrives. Sure enough, T McD spots Earl overfold here, working too far inwards, seeing the numbers there, and so his body's turned inwards, and then last second snaps back the other way, scoring a try to give Australia hope, heading into arguably the last 2 minutes, but really test 2. Saturday was, frankly, a very odd setup for the series. Lions tours are difficult. Those emotional speeches are so iconic because they're necessary. Almost every Lions side leaves Europe, heads down under, and loses the series. It's why the winning tours are so legendary, still spoken of 50 plus years later. The Lions is a tradition that rarely wins, so we look forward to the ones that do, not every 4 years, but every 12, 16. This set of Lions, Andy Farrell's Lions, entered this tour against Australia with the bookies expecting a 3-0 series win, maybe for the first time ever. And Saturday, with that in mind, it was a game that went broadly as expected. The Lions won because they were better. The emotional edge from a tearful Ian McGeechan was not needed, at least by the Lions. 2025 is a Lions series in reverse. Australia on Saturday was shown their Everest, the scale, the size, the glory. As Telfer said that day, defeat doesn't worry me. I've had it many times before, and so have you. It's the performance that matters. If you put in the performance, you get what you deserve. there's no luck attached. With Rob Valentini and Will Skelton set to be fit for the second test, what bad luck had pinned itself to the Wallaby badge is now evaporating. The mindset has to be clear. To beat the Lions in a test match is the ultimate. The rematch awaits. This is your Everest, boys.
Thanks for watching that. I hope you enjoyed it. The Lions series well underway now. We've got Rugby Championship coming up. We've got Women's World Cup coming up. We've got domestic season at some point coming up. There's so much going on. We've got a video on Wales' new head coach, Steve Tandy, on the second channel, More Squid Rugby. Please have a look at that. We'll have a look at Zimbabwe qualify from the World Cup this week. We've got so much going up on there. Please go and have a mosey around. In the meantime, there'll be more big analysis stuff for the second test, which will be coming up next week. The third test beyond that. We're going to have a look at some other games. It's all going to be going on. So thank you for watching. Thank you for supporting on Patreon. Honestly makes this all possible. There's been so many kind of changes going on lately, but it really makes it all possible. So thank you very much, and we'll see you very soon for more rugby.
Karena itulah arti menjadi seorang singa. Tidak ada hal lain selain itu. Bukan tentang mengambil bagian, bukan tentang berada di sini. Ini tentang menang. Mereka tidak akan memilikinya. Mereka tidak akan memilikinya. Jadikan itu sebagai perbedaanmu. Kita akan membawa mereka ke arena yang terluka akhir pekan ini karena mentalitas kita akan menjadi mentalitas yang berbeda dari apa yang dimiliki tim British Lions.